In just 39 seconds, one of Hollywood's toughest actors went from friendly guest to walking off set after a brutal takedown of a morning show host who crossed every line imaginable. What started as simple questions about his new movie turned into Michael Strahan getting absolutely destroyed on live television. Before we get into this insane confrontation, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We bring you daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals. And trust me, you don't want to miss what goes down in the industry. The Good Morning America studio was buzzing with its usual morning energy. Camera operators were adjusting their positions, producers were speaking into headsets, and the audience sat waiting for the next segment. Michael Strahan stood near his chair on the bright set, flipping through note cards while Tom Hardy sat across from him, relaxed but alert in his seat. The British actor had flown in to promote his latest film, a gritty action thriller that was already getting major buzz. Strahan started off friendly enough, smiling his trademark smile as the cameras went live. "Tom Hardy, welcome back to Good Morning America, man. Good to see you again." Hardy nodded, his expression calm. "Yeah, good to be here, Michael. So, let's talk about this new movie. You're playing another tough guy, another fighter. Seems like that's all you do these days, right?" Strahan said with a little laugh. There was a pause. Hardy's eyes narrowed slightly, but he kept his composure. "Well, I wouldn't say that's all I do. I've done plenty of different roles. This one just happens to be physical." "Yeah." Strahan leaned back in his chair, still smiling, but with an edge creeping into his voice. Right. But come on, man. Mad Max, Warrior, Venom, Bronson, you're always playing these angry, violent dudes. Don't you ever want to do something, I don't know, lighter, maybe show some range?" The studio went quiet. A few people in the audience shifted uncomfortably. Hardy's jaw tightened, and he sat up straighter in his seat. "Show some range? Are you serious right now?" Strahan shrugged, his smile fading into something more challenging. "I'm just saying what people think, Tom. You've got this reputation for being the tough guy, the method actor who takes himself too seriously. Maybe mix it up a little." Hardy stared at him for a long moment, his eyes cold. "First of all, Michael, if you'd actually watched any of my films properly, you'd know I've played everything from a spy to a romantic lead to a damn fighter pilot. But I guess doing your homework isn't really your thing, is it?" A producer off camera made a small gesture trying to signal Strahan to move on, but he ignored it. Instead, he leaned forward, his voice getting sharper. Whoa. I do my homework, buddy. Don't come at me like that. I'm just asking the questions that America wants answered." Hardy let out a short, harsh laugh. "America wants answered, or you want to stir up some drama for ratings?" "Because there's a difference, mate." The tension in the studio was thick now. The camera operators exchanged nervous glances. The audience sat frozen, unsure whether to react. Strahan's face hardened, his friendly TV persona cracking. "You know what, Tom, you've always had this attitude problem. Every interview I've seen with you, you're either giving one-word answers or acting like you're too good to be there." Hardy's expression went ice cold. "Attitude problem? That's rich coming from someone who interrupts his guests every 5 seconds and turns every conversation into a joke. Maybe I give short answers because the questions are stupid." Strahan's eyes flashed with anger. "Stupid? You think my questions are stupid?" "Yeah, I do." Hardy shot back, his voice steady but cutting. "You just ask me if I want to show range. Like I haven't spent 20 years proving that I can do whatever the hell I want on screen. That's not a question, Michael. That's you being lazy and trying to get a reaction." Strahan stood up from his chair, his microphone still clipped to his jacket. "Lazy, man. I've been doing this job for years. I've interviewed presidents, athletes, actors way bigger than you. Don't sit here and tell me I'm lazy." Hardy didn't move from his seat, but his voice got quieter, more dangerous. "Then why are you acting like one of those trashy tabloid hosts instead of doing your job properly? You want to talk about my movie, fine. You want to ask me about my process, the story, the people I worked with, great. But don't sit there and insult what I do and expect me to smile and nod." A commercial break graphic appeared on the monitors, but the cameras were still rolling. The producers were frantically trying to cut away, but the confrontation was escalating too fast. Strahan pointed at Hardy, his voice rising. You know what your problem is, you think you're above all this, you think morning television is beneath you. Well, newsflash, Tom. This is how we connect with people. This is how we make entertainment accessible. Hardy finally stood up, pulling off his microphone and tossing it onto the chair. Connect with people, you're not connecting with anyone, mate. You're just pushing buttons to get clicks and views. And you know what, I'm not playing this game. Strahan moved closer, his face red with anger. Oh, so now you're going to walk off? That's real professional, Tom. Real classy. Hardy turned to face him fully, his voice low but intense. You want to talk about professional? Let's talk about how you ambushed me with that question about range when you know damn well I've done everything from comedy to drama. You didn't want a conversation, Michael. You wanted a confrontation. Well, congratulations. You got one. The audience was completely silent now. Watching the two men face off in the middle of the bright, cheerful set. Strahan jabbed a finger toward Hardy. I asked a legitimate question about your career choices. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be doing press. Hardy's laugh was bitter. Legitimate? You basically called me a one-trick pony on live television, and now you're acting like I'm the one being unreasonable. Unbelievable. One of the producers finally stepped onto the set trying to mediate. Guys, let's just take a breath here. We can. Strahan cut him off. No, let him talk. Let Tom Hardy show everyone what kind of guy he really is. Can't take a little criticism. So, he throws a tantrum. Hardy's eyes went dark. A tantrum? Is that what you think this is? I've sat through hundreds of interviews, Michael. I've dealt with tough questions, personal questions, invasive questions. I've never walked off a set in my life. But I'll be damned if I'm going to sit here and let some former football player who stumbled into a hosting gig talk down to me about my craft. The room went dead silent, Strahan's face twisted with rage. Former football player? That's what you think of me? I earned my place here, just like you earned yours. Don't you dare disrespect my career. Hardy shook his head, his voice cold. Then don't disrespect mine. You started this, mate, not me. I came here to talk about a film I'm proud of, and you turned it into an attack. Strahan took a step closer, his voice shaking with anger. An attack? I asked you one question about your roles, and you turned it into World War II. That's on you, buddy. Hardy grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair. One question. You've been taking shots since I sat down. The tough guy comments. The method actor jokes. The whole show some range garbage. You think I didn't notice? You think I'm just going to sit here and take it? Strahan threw his hands up. Jesus Christ, Tom, you're so sensitive. It's a morning talk show, not a therapy session. Lighten up. Hardy stared at him, his expression a mix of disgust and disbelief. Sensitive? You ambush me on live TV, insult my work, and then tell me to lighten up. You know what, Michael, this is exactly what's wrong with these shows. You don't actually care about the guests or their projects. You just want moments that'll go viral. You want drama so people will share clips on social media. Strahan's voice got louder. Oh, here we go. The high and mighty artist who's too pure for the dirty world of promotion. You know what, Tom, you signed up for this. You agreed to come on this show. If you didn't want to answer questions, you should have stayed home. Hardy's voice was ice. I agreed to promote my film, not to be your punching bag. There's a difference. The producer stepped between them again, his hands raised. Okay, guys. Seriously, we need to wrap this up. Tom, if you want to leave, that's fine. Michael, let's just. Strahan cut him off again, his eyes locked on Hardy. Yeah, let him leave. Let him run away like he always does when things get tough. That's what you do, right, Tom? When you don't like the questions, you just shut down or walk off. Hardy's fists clenched at his sides. You don't know a damn thing about me, Michael. You think because you read some Wikipedia page and skim through a press kit, you know who I am. You don't know anything about what I've been through or what I've had to do to get where I am. Strahan laughed, but there was no humor in it. Oh, here comes the soba story. Poor Tom Hardy had to work hard to become a famous actor. Crime May River man. We've all worked hard. The difference is some of us don't act like we're too good for the process. Hardy took a step toward him, his voice deadly quiet. I have never ever acted like I'm too good for anything. What I don't do is put up with disrespect, and that's all you've shown me since I sat down. So yeah, I'm leaving. Not because I can't handle criticism, not because I'm sensitive, but because I have enough self-respect not to sit here and be insulted by someone who clearly has an axe to grind. Strahan's face was red now. His voice nearly shouting, axe to grind? I don't even know you, man. I'm just doing my job. Hardy shook his head slowly. Your job is to interview people, not to tear them down. You forgot that somewhere along the way. Maybe it's the pressure of the ratings. Maybe it's your own insecurities. I don't know, but this. He gestured around the studio. This isn't journalism. This is a circus. The audience gasped. Some people covered their mouths in shock. Strahan took another step forward, his finger pointing at Hardy's chest. You do not get to come onto my show and call it a circus. You do not get to disrespect what we do here. Hardy didn't back down. I'll call it whatever I want when you treat me like garbage. You want respect, earn it. Don't demand it while you're throwing insults. Strahan's voice cracked with fury. Get off my set. Get the hell off my set right now. Hardy smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Gladly was planning on it anyway. As Hardy turned to leave, Strahan called after him. You're going to regret this, Tom. Walking off like this. It makes you look weak. It makes you look like a child. Hardy stopped and turned back, his voice calm, but final. You know what makes someone look weak, Michael? Attacking a guest because you're having a bad day or because you think it'll get you attention. That's weak. I came here in good faith and you turned it into a hit job. So, yeah, I'm leaving and I don't regret it for a second. The studio was frozen. Camera operators stood motionless. The audience sat in stunned silence. The producers were pale, clearly panicking about what had just happened on live television. Strahan stood in the middle of the set, his chest heaving, his face a mask of barely controlled rage. Hardy walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the quiet studio. Just before he reached the door, he turned back one more time. And for the record, Michael, I've done romantic comedies, period dramas, and everything in between. Maybe if you'd actually prepared for this interview instead of looking for cheap shots, you'd know that. Do better. With that, Tom Hardy pushed through the studio door and disappeared, leaving Michael Strahan standing alone on the set. The camera is still rolling, capturing every second of the disaster. The host stood there, his jaw tight, his fists clenched, as the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. The friendly morning show had turned into a battleground, and it had all fallen apart in spectacular fashion. The audience remained silent, unsure of what to do. The producers were frantically signaling to cut to commercial. Strahan finally moved, walking back to his chair with heavy steps, his face still flushed with anger. He sat down, staring at the empty chair where Hardy had been just minutes before. One of the producers approached cautiously. Michael, we need to. Strahan held up a hand, cutting him off. He took a deep breath, trying to compose himself, but the damage was done. The confrontation had been raw, brutal, and completely unscripted. It was the kind of moment that would be replayed endlessly, dissected from every angle, and talked about for weeks. The floor manager counted down, and suddenly the cameras cut to commercial. The bright, cheerful graphics appeared on the monitors, a stark contrast to the tension that still hung in the air. Strahan sat in his chair, his head in his hands while the crew moved around him in shocked silence. Backstage, Tom Hardy was already heading toward the exit. His security team surrounding him. His publicist was on the phone, her voice urgent as she tried to control the situation, but Hardy's expression was calm, almost peaceful. He'd said what he needed to say, and he wasn't looking back. The green room door swung open, and Hardy grabbed his bag without breaking stride. His assistant hurried to keep up, asking if he was okay, if he needed anything. Hardy just shook his head, his jaw set. I'm fine. Let's get out of here. As they moved through the backstage corridors, production assistants and crew members stepped aside, staring at the actor who had just blown up one of the most watched morning shows in America. Some looked sympathetic, others shocked, but no one tried to stop him. Hardy pushed through the final door that led to the parking area. The cool morning air hit his face, and he took a deep breath. Behind him, he could hear the muffled chaos of the studio, producers shouting, phones ringing, the machinery of damage control starting to turn. But Tom Hardy didn't look back. He walked to the waiting car, climbed in, and as the door closed behind him, the vehicle pulled away from the Good Morning America studio. Inside, the confrontation was still unfolding in its aftermath, with Strahan trying to regain his composure and the producers scrambling to figure out what to do next. The interview that was supposed to be a simple promotional appearance had become something else entirely. A line had been crossed. Words had been said that couldn't be taken back. And one of Hollywood's biggest stars had walked off one of television's biggest stages. The cameras had captured it all. Every word, every expression, every moment of the explosive confrontation that would be talked about for years to come. As the commercial break ended and the show returned to air, Strahan sat alone at the desk. The empty chair beside him, a stark reminder of what had just happened. The co-hosts tried to smooth over the situation, making light comments and moving quickly to the next segment, but the damage was done. The audience had seen it. The viewers at home had seen it, and social media was already exploding with reactions. Tom Hardy's car merged into New York traffic, leaving the studio and the confrontation behind. His phone was already buzzing with messages, calls, notifications. But for now, he ignored them all, staring out the window at the city passing by, knowing that he'd just been part of one of the most dramatic moments in morning television history. And unlike Michael Strahan, who would spend the rest of the day doing damage control and trying to spin what had happened, Hardy felt no regret. He'd stood his ground, called out the disrespect, and walked away with his dignity intact. The car turned a corner, and the Good Morning America studio disappeared from view. But the confrontation that had taken place inside its walls would live on, replayed and analyzed countless times. It was a moment that showed what happens when professional courtesy breaks down, when egos clash, and when someone finally says enough is enough and walks away.